Preservation Ordinance. If anyone present wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to any item on today's agenda, please sign up on the Persons to be Heard sheet in the back. It is not necessary to sign up to speak if you are the owner of or representative for a project on the agenda. You will be called on as the case is called. Approval by this board does not take place of any type of permit. Permits must be obtained for all work. No work of any type is to be started without obtaining the appropriate city permits after a certificate of appropriateness has been issued by the Historic Preservation Officer. Do we have any public comments, Shelby? Oh, nothing? Okay, great. If not, moving on to item number 5, approval of last month's meetings. It was last month's meeting on the 14th and also the site visit on the 23rd. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those? There's no comments. I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented. Right. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Item number 6, certificate of appropriateness applications. There are no consent agenda items tonight, so we'll move on to item number A. Application number 23-004, 416, 418 East Main Street. I see applicants are at the podium. And for the record, Mr. Laughlin is speaking here. Thank you guys so much for being patient with the board. I know this is your third time's a charm. Anna, you want to give us the summary of the site meeting, and maybe that'll help things move along.
Sure. So the Historic Review Board convened in a special session on February 23rd on site at 416, 418 East Main Street to look at some potential colors. And there were some colors mocked up, but the board was unable to take a vote at that time. So that's why it's back before you today. Okay. It was decided that the roof color would change to the dark gray or black, and that a few options would be presented. A very pale pink would be presented for today's meeting, and the applicant has provided a few different options. They are preferring option 7 with the verbena as the primary color for 416 and cream as the primary color for 418. Let's see. So staff recommends options number 3 or 5 with cream as the primary color for both 416 and 418, and then verbena would be the accent color of 416, and rockwood antique gold for 418 as the accent color with a natural stain for the door. So we can go through those options. So this is option 7. This is the one that they are preferring. You can see here.
We haven't put it on poster.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Just pass it around.
And then I put the exact same thing.
Okay. Right here.
It's right here. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us who you are again.
Sure. Jason Stout.
Brooke Rogan.
And then we just basically, I appreciate the site visit. That was helpful. We picked out had all the samples in front of us, and everybody kind of picked what they thought would look good and pass. So these were what we came up with after the suggestions of the board that came out to the site visit.
I think it's a great example of how sometimes on paper it looks one way, and then in real life it's a little different,
right,
with lighting and the different materials of the buildings.
It was nice. We were all out there. We were like, I mean, everybody was commenting, and they're seeing us on Main Street looking at stuff, and guy brought roof samples, everything. So
great. Okay.
So we listed all that in the legend there of the actual samples that they approved, and well, not been approved, just like
for discussion.
So yeah, we thought could just come in here for we couldn't vote last time for a quorum or something. I'm not
Right.
really privy to all that, but we're here.
Okay, good.
We wanna
Good. So hopefully we can get it taken care of tonight. So
All right, fantastic.
those members that were present at the site visit, you guys want to tell us what you saw and what your thoughts are?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, let me say first, I drove by when I think there were 3 samples painted,
samples.
and I guess that now those are off the table. I won't tell you which my preference was, but I will say that I will defer to my fellow board members on their professional expertise. Thanks.
Who else was present at the site meeting? Would love to hear from both of you.
I thought that when we were at that, at the site visit, verbena was not a color that was presented. That was a color that came up with as an option because the other colors that were put up were too bright. And I also thought that we had all concurred that to paint the whole address, even though we have 2 different architectural styles, cream color, not the pink color, not even the verbena pink being the main color, that being the accent color. And for that reason, I would not go with option 7. I would go with option 3.
What was the number again?
3.
3. Could you bring that up? Would you?
And really, the other option that was recommended, I'm just not familiar with the rockwood antique gold or
Yeah, as you guys just picked it from when we were sitting there
so
on
it
the
was
slaughter.
I had to leave a little bit early,
Right.
so I wasn't familiar with that. So
We literally, we just went over these golds. She held it up against the thing, and she picked that one, and I was kind of at that point. I was just like, whatever you want me to paint it, I'll paint it.
well, then if you all
That's-
discussed it and that
Mhm.
was one that was agreed upon, then I can go with option 5 too.
Okay.
That was the pink she chose, Amy Slaughter, the gold and the green white.
Okay.
Yeah, which is that.
And so option 5 or option 3, where the building, the main color is the cream and not the pink, and that very pale pink is used, that you brought the color sample of. That verbena is used as the accent
Can I
color.
request a majority vote on this board to do the left side pink, the verbena, which is very, very light, almost white. She held it up to the building and everyone literally didn't think it was almost white. She said we could do a majority vote. Someone had to leave early. We weren't able to get the opportunity. Is there a way to request that at this board tonight?
We'll give you a decision tonight. So is this the color that you're talking about?
Yeah, verbena.
Is it right? Well, then, you-
Yes, I actually agree with Robin to go with either option 3 or 5. And I've also noticed that it says natural or natural wood stain for accent color.
Okay.
So that might not be a bad option
Yeah.
to consider instead of gold. But or another option, what we can do is request a sample, maybe of 2 of those from option 3 and 5. To have it painted, maybe on the building somewhere.
I mean, I'll go with section 3. I think it's time to come up with an okay. I'm okay with any of the options. I'm sure you're gonna be okay with it. And when she was saying the stain and stuff, like you're saying, that was a great idea by her, and I'm fine with that. So if I do option 3, it'll look like that. I can go on record. It'll look like that. I'll leave it.
I think we've discussed it a lot, and it's a little bit confusing, all the different colors floating around. I think you guys have shown at least 6 or 8 different colors, and appreciate doing that. I think city staff has done a great job of narrowing it down to either option 3 or option 5. So if you guys are ready to hear a motion, if anyone would like to make it, or we can keep asking for different colors.
I'm not clear on how to make that motion where there's 2 options.
But you want to read the staff recommendation as it is.
Yes, so staff recommends either option or 3 with cream as the primary color for both sections, Verbena as the accent for 416, and Rockwood Antique Gold for the accent on 418. I should have specified that the natural stain would be appropriate for the door, maybe not the columns, but the door.
For those board members that weren't present at the site visit but probably have an opinion, you guys chime in or make a motion there.
I wasn't able to be there, but this light pink, Verbena, whatever color we want to call it, is very period appropriate for that section of the house. So I like the fact y'all are doing the dark roof. I like the fact that we're going to separate it with color and show the definition of history. So I don't have any problem with the light pink.
I would agree too. I don't think it's detrimental to the site or the neighborhood, and I think it's period appropriate, and particularly if it helps with a local business a little bit in their marketing. With pink, I think that would be helpful too. So I have no problem with that as well.
I had a question. I'm sorry if I missed it, but the door, is it able to be stained? Because we talked about maybe it might have some blemishes.
I had the antique guy that does my San Antonio stuff, and he said they would kind of like sandblast it, but it's not as, and they will have nicks, but they kind of just fill it in, and then they'll stain at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they do a lot of restoration and stuff for the historic district in San Antonio.
Okay.
So he told me it was savable.
Okay. And I like all of the options. I think that they're all really great choices.
Great.
Larry? So it sounds like we are violently agreeing that the pink verbena is the right color. So as far as where that goes, is it a primary or is it an accent color? I'm a little confused. It sounds like city staff is recommending that pink is an accent. Is that what the board is going with, or using the? I think it's either 3 or 5.
Would staff be amenable to that? I guess be the western portion with the verbena on that.
Option number 7.
Oh, sorry, I think 7.
I'll leave it to you. My recommendation was based on kind of keeping them together and then using the accents to separate them. So that was really the premises of my recommendation.
Thanks, Anna.
How about a motion?
And make sure.
Which one's up there right?
Can you,
Option 3.
can you zoom out just so we see the on the bottom of it?
Yeah, they're very, very subtle differences.
This is that.
Three, one that has pink body.
No, 7.
No,
is the one
7,
that has the pink body.
Going up there.
No, right here. Very good. I do.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the one that has the pink body on the left side.
Would you stick to one of the
Option
options
7.
that?
The one that's up there right now. I don't know what option. I don't think
That's
anybody
7.
does.
If you
7.
zoom out, just will catch it on the record. So I think that's
It's also
okay. There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve option 7 as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Further discussion. If not, all those in favor of the motion?
I've got a further discussion.
Okay.
Okay, I thought at the site visit that we had discussed this and we had decided that, that the best option was to keep it all the light color and use the pink and the sconce gold as the accent colors.
So she was reconsidering after you left that meeting, due to the picked a super light pink color.
I do not know.
I'm basing it just on the fact that most of these houses were pink bodied originally. I've never seen one white with pink ground, but I've seen a lot of pink houses with white. historical.
No, I liked, I was at the site visit and I did like the idea of having it continuous throughout, just because the paints that were originally chosen, I just didn't feel right. But now that you have like a more appropriate pink, I feel like it's nice to distinguish the two periods. And that's why I would go with 7 also.
I would agree with that, Jessica. I think this is the best pink that we've seen.
Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and we have a second for option number 7 as presented. Right. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Opposed.
5 to 42. So motion passes. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
You bet.
beautiful. Thank you.
Moving on. Item number B, application 23-002 410 South Milam. Mr. Klein, welcome home.
Thought you were staring at me. Big picture there. Hi, board. I'm Stan Klein.
Right.
I was going to make a motion, but I don't think Anna would have permitted. So,
Before you get started, Anna, you want to go through the application because I know Stan will be able to add the color.
well, I parked next to a pink car out there, so I know what pink looks like. So, anyway, I'm Stan Klein. I'm working on an 1880s opportunity to work on a very old stone house, and the client is very interested in preserving it, both interior and exterior. I think my application is self-explanatory. It gives you details. I mean, I can talk about a lot of things about that building. I think the site plan showing what was there before and what's been removed. And then that's the result.
Okay.
Of the addition is the white area except for the tank house. The barn is the issue that y'all are going to be discussing.
Let's let Anna go ahead and give her rendition of it, and then we'll turn it back to you, Stan.
Very good.
All right, application 23-002 at 410 South Milam. This is a landmark property, and the applicant is requesting a new rear addition, window and door restoration, restoration of porches, roof replacement, smokehouse and tank house repairs, and demolition of barn and storage shed, chicken coop. 410 South Milam is a local landmark known as the Clear House, and it's an excellent example of a typical residential compound, including a stone house, tank house, smokehouse, barn, and ancillary outbuildings for storage and animals and land for farming. There are a few such properties left within the city limits. Previously approved work has begun on selective demolition of the non-historic additions. Many original features of the house have been changed over time, including the replacement of the original wood shingle roof with a typical metal roof, porch changes including concrete porch floors replacing the wood on limestone floor, removal of decorative trim, and random post replacements. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for a new rear addition. Walls will be stone and stucco veneer. Wood shingles will be the roofing material over the addition. Item 2, restoration of the existing windows and doors. Item 3, restoration of the existing porches to match original details based on historic photos. Item 4, installation of Trex 1x4 flooring on the porches. Item 5, repair existing smokehouse and tank house. Item 6, removal of historic aged chicken coop / shed and wood barn. I've cited the relevant sections of the Historic Preservation Ordinance dealing with demolition and the relevant sections of the design guidelines for roofs, porches, additions. Staff commends the new owner for taking on the substantial rehabilitation efforts of the main house, tank house, and smokehouse. Item 1, staff finds the addition meets the design guidelines, including 3.3 A, K, L, and M, and it is appropriate in location, size, material, and compatibility. Item 2, staff finds proposed rehab of the windows and doors, including proposed paint colors, to be appropriate. Item 3, the applicant has found historic photos of the house with porch details and has identified very similar houses in the district to base the reproduction of the porch features. And staff recommends approval based on section 3.25J and K. Item 4, the original porch flooring was replaced decades ago with concrete. Since the original material is not intact, staff finds a replacement with Trex meets section 3.25E. Item 5, the tank house and smokehouse are important features to the property, and staff supports the proposed repairs. Item 6, as a landmark property, all appurtenances have high ratings by default, and the barn carries significance as a key part of the agricultural history of the property. Demolition has a longer review time, up to 120 days, than other C of A requests. As such, staff recommends members of the Historic Review Board visit the site to better understand the condition of the barn. If it is determined that demolition is to be allowed based on the criteria set forth in Chapter 23, the property should be thoroughly documented.
Great. Now, back to you, Stan. If we could just, for beginning, let's just cover items 1 through 5, and then we'll save the barn issue for the end. So let's just start off with 1 through 5, Stan.
The new rear addition is supplements the 2 bedrooms with bathrooms. And then there's a dining gathering area. If you go to the floor plan, you can see what I'm talking about. I tried to keep the addition minor, but I also tied the smokehouse into the addition, like my old office, you remember, Richard? And so we tied it together. Initially, we kept it separate, but bringing it together added the guest restroom opportunity. There's a hand-dug well in the center, which the owners are delighted, just like the cistern on the right, that we're going to retain and then pretty much preserve as is. But the center of the addition is obviously around that well. And it also addresses some of the elevation changes between the smokehouse and the main house itself, because there's some elevation differences. The tank house remains. It's a later building. It's pretty much a cement building. The back porch is, again, simple, but it is on the south side. It allows for the backyard to be functional. It respects that. We added the door to this family space from the street or from the parking area, and that was a request by the owner. The addition is going to be pier and beam. There will be no sheetrock in the house or in the addition. And so, let me see what else we're talking about. The existing windows, well, for the most part, are all intact. The shutters were there when we first took over the property, and immediately the owner knew that we needed to preserve the shutters. And so they were all gathered and marked, and they're in storage right now, but undergoing repair and restoration. The same thing for the main doors. They too were removed, and they're in storage. The windows will be restored in place, and that's a first priority. Let me see what else. Windows and doors, the restoration of the porches. First, we didn't know what to do. I knew what was there is wrong because it had a plywood soffit ceiling on the porch, and it had 2x4s, spindles, and so forth. And you saw that in the previous application. So I remember years ago, my brother and I talked about how we find historic building materials. Well, you look in the neighborhood and you start looking, because those are sometimes copied and replicated by the builder. And so, sure enough, I found parts of different houses on Creek Street. I told Anna this. So I almost gave up and turned around, went to the post office and drove back to Austin Street. And all of the whole, I stopped and looked to the right. There's this house at 507 West Austin. I think it's pretty close to one of your projects. It's a match. The details and everything. So, I mean, I hate to say that I'm conjecturing, but that's it. And the same details and everything are there. So that should help justify the restoration. The Trex flooring, I've been involved in that. The reason that porch right now has concrete that we've removed, it's because the wood flooring gave out. So we're going to come back in and put treated substructure and then put tongue and groove Trex, or one of the manufacturers of it. More?
Great job. Well, first off, just a comment. So, great job on your application. Very thorough. I really appreciate the historic pictures, and also commend you on how the design and functionality really respect the original building and structure, and just a great designs.
Thank you. There's a lot of property there too.
Yeah.
And I respect the fact that the owner doesn't want to develop a little house here and a little house there. So that's one of the reasons they bought.
Go ahead.
Stan, on the smokehouse, the south wall, that's going to be just exposed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
The one that ties into the house.
right here.
I can't see the. I'm just looking on your floor plan.
Yeah, you can see it here. And right there. That's it right here.
Yeah, where it meets the house, is that going to be exposed?
It'll be exposed in here.
Yeah, the rock.
Will be too. And that roof structure. So it's got a different name than smokehouse.
Comments or questions for Stan? Again, we're just covering items 1 through 5. We can get those out of the way. Happy to entertain a motion then for items 1 through 5.
Stan, are you coming back with color?
I think I put colors on it. Go to the elevations on the drawings.
Nice job.
Did you see it? Good. I don't have pictures of it, but the greens from the shutters there, that's the color, and the sash is red. So I mean, and everything else.
Oxblood.
I'm sorry.
I think it's oxblood, isn't it? The red.
We have to get an ox to get
Yeah.
the color right.
Well, if I cleaner, we just go 1 through 5.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve items 1 through 5 on 410 South Milo.
I second.
Any further discussions or questions for Mr. Klein for items 1 through 5? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Now let's move on to item number 6, the barn. Tell us what the recommendation is, Stan.
Well, looking at, did anybody look at the barn?
Yeah.
Good job. That's a field trip, right?
Yeah.
The barn
Did
is,
everybody get out to look at it or not?
I have
you
not.
get travel expense for that?
Go ahead.
What can I say? If you walked into it, there's a picture, I think, is it down below? This one here scares you when you look at the floor. It's not supported anymore. My structural engineer that wrote the letter, he's worked on a lot of home buildings. And he's worked with another architect, Don Bones. And he called that siding flap and strap. That's the kind of structure it is. It's basically You see the stud right here, you only have one, you're allowed one. And then you come across with a frame that you see, it's usually a secondary building. And it's not, all the weight of the building is on that one back. So through the years, when it weathers, you start losing, like you can see the termites here. So basically, the integrity of that little flooring right there with the A in it, I wouldn't get up there because it will collapse. The upshot is, how do you preserve it? And it's just like the Grovey barbershop that you saw a year ago. So it's in bad shape, and we essentially are preserving the exterior. We're going to build a new building in it, and that's essentially what would happen here. The letter from the engineer states the same thing, and he says he understands the responsibility of what you all do. The owner wishes to fill that void, and I have developed some barn sketches that base it off of that barn. There are no square nails in it. It shows it's more of a 20th century building. So anyway, the upshot is I'm not saying, look at that, what's going to be replaced, but that void bothers the owner because it represents part of the farmstead. And so I'm just we're asking for permission to remove it because of we can surround it with tape and keep people out of it, but you wouldn't want to restore it the way it is with the integrity that it lacks integrity because of the public safety and the accommodation that you have. Because what the owner wished that it would do is to be an open area to gather. So that means it's going to be stud walls, insulation, but on the exterior, we'd like to salvage the siding as much as we can, and that's going to be challenging too. But it would be the same material if we replicate and reconstruct.
So the desire is to demolish it?
I'm sorry?
So the desire is to demolish it?
Dismantle it.
Okay, dismantle it.
Yeah, we won't push it over with Roby boys. Yeah.
Yeah, I drove out yesterday to take a look at it, and to me, just one opinion of the board, I think it'd be very difficult to restore. There's no foundation. There's a lot of wood rot. One thing, the value of most of that longleaf pine is pretty high. I mean, the true, 2x6s and the ship's plank and 1x12. So, I mean, I would recommend harvesting if the board allows that demolition. Because that's very expensive wood. It's beautiful. But I do see that difficulty in trying to restore the current building as is because it's lack of foundation and structural support.
This was added on, and this was definitely form that was the original. And by the time, because a lot of the lumber is not really that, I don't know how much salvaging you've seen, but I mean, I know there are people that would like to have that material, but it's dangerous taking it apart because you're taking the studs out, taking the walls, the skin.
So others that had a chance to drive by, what are your thoughts?
I'd agree with Stan. This building has served its purpose in past reconstruction. And you could go build another building on the inside of it, then you could replace all the siding. You've got nothing. So I would suggest salvaging it, documenting for Anna's suggestion what's there. You come back, whatever you want to come back.
As a historian, I would really encourage the applicant to harvest that wood and use it on the same site. I think would be appropriate, if that's possible.
I agree that there's nothing south. I mean, the building's about to fall down. One thing that's really good are some of the crap that's in the
Did you want to go in it? You didn't want to go into it, did you? There's a picture on the first.
I went into every room.
This sheet here. My wife always says, do this. Do this. It's further up the plate. It's the first few photos. You see part of it there, but keep going, keep going. last one, take a look to the left. That's kind of giving you an idea of what we would reconstruct. So it would fall in that same place. And the owner's desire is for it to be there. Although we're not saying we're going to do it right now, but I think that the big part is restoring the main house. Then we come back to you and say, this is what we'd like to build here, because it's visible. And we don't want to reconstruct the chicken house.
I think the documentation is key for dimensions and relative position to the existing structures that you're going to save. This is one that we normally would just, change the classification, but in this case, it's an old structure. Our guidelines allow demolition.
Is it all the landmark, the entire site, I guess?
Yeah, all ancillary buildings know that. So, what's the best way to accomplish this with our guidelines, Anna?
Yeah, so the ordinance, as an exception, obviously high-rated properties are prohibited from demolition. A resource may be demolished or removed if the board determines that it is hazardous or dangerous building. In the case of demolition, the board shall affirmatively find that reasonable measures cannot be taken for adaptive reuse. Reasonable measures have been taken to relocate the structure. The condition of the resource or the building is such that it has been so altered or deteriorated that it's lost its value. Plans for the proposed new construction or other reuse of the property and their effects on the historic identity of the surrounding area will be a positive and promote the goals of this article.
So it sounds like we do have some room in our guidelines, even though it is a high-rated building because of the main structure, that it's beyond repair. So I would encourage whoever makes a motion to include that exception.
Right. And you can make, it says, in making the determination to permit demolition, board may place reasonable conditions on the same, even if such conditions are not related to the mandatory requirements of this article, but are related to the demolition or removal to ensure compliance with plans approved by the board. So in some instances, we've seen where you would kind of withhold the building demolition permit until something's been approved. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but you could do something like that, or make requirements for certain documentation if it's HABs level or photographs or drawings, whatever you would think is appropriate.
You know what HABs level is? HABs documentation.
Stands big.
Historic American Building Survey documentation. Typical walls of one plate. Yeah, we've got it documented, but not in a HABs format.
I will make a motion according to the Fredericksburg Design Guidelines and Section 23-63, the demolition and removal of item number 6, the chicken shed in the wood barn, to approve the demolition due to hazardous conditions, unsafe conditions, and with the exception that the applicant submit documentation of the dimensions and location of the not the chicken coop, but the barn.
Okay. Is there a second? Larry seconds it. Right. Discussions or clarifications for Jessica?
Will we be salvaging the materials?
I'd like to add to my motion that the materials be salvaged and reused on the property.
And Larry, you good with seconding that? Any other discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Great, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you, board.
Thanks.
It's all good to see dialogue and not always going with the group. Speaking up and taking your position. There's a lot of subjectivity in your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item C, application number 23-115 at 108 East Schubert. Is there an applicant present? And let the record indicate that Mr. Laughlin has reclused himself. Okay. Tell us who you are and what would you like to do?
I am Kelsey. I work for Laughlin Homes, and we would like to add a garage apartment unit on the back side, facing or closer to the side on East Travis. We just got the main house passed a couple of months ago. That's on the East Schubert side. So the homeowners have requested a garage apartment on the back side.
Yeah. Anna, you want to walk us through the application?
Yes, application 23-115 at 108 East Schubert Street. This is a landmark high-rated property as well. And the applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to build a two-car garage measuring 24 by 36 in footprint and a story and a half in height, with exterior metals to be Core-10 corrugated metal siding with a paint grip standing seam roof and bronze windows. I've cited the relevant sections of the design guidelines, including 3.41 lot coverage and site layout, 3.43 accessory buildings, height, massing, and materials. And for staff's recommendation, 108 East Schubert is a through lot, meaning it has frontage on both East Schubert and East Travis Streets. The property is accessed from East Travis Street. The lot is large enough for a new structure, and staff recommends approval of a new garage and ADU with the condition that the relevant design guidelines and standards are met. A previous design, you have seen this property before, a different design was approved in 2021 that met the requirements. Staff finds this project does not meet the requirements for 3.41 lot coverage, item G, 3.43 height and massing, item C, and 3.43 materials, I, J, and K.
Can you expand on for the lot coverage, the 3.4.1? Is it out of whack on the measurements or?
Yes, so in areas zoned R1 and R2, the footprint of any single accessory dwelling unit shall not cover a larger footprint than that of the primary building.
And the primary is how large compared to this? The proposal, you know?
Actually, I put that as I wasn't able to get that from the applicant in time for that, so I kind of put that as a holder for something to evaluate during the meeting. And then height and massing. For a high-rated property, the maximum is a 1-story or 18 feet in height for an ADU or accessory building.
I would like to mention that it's actually a 2-story. It's a full height on the second floor. It's not 1.5.
Okay. Do you have the square footage of the original structure? The footprint of the original house? Yeah. I think that's what Anna was talking about. I had to eyeball it, Anna. It's probably the 24 by 24. It's probably not 24 by 36 as the new one. This obviously is a little different because the ADU is on top of a garage that we would normally accept.
The existing first floor is 650 square feet.
Okay, yeah. So 650 for the original versus 864 for the garage ADU. So about 33% larger. Okay, correct.
As far as the property being a through, how Anna was saying that you can see it from Travis' side, it's just not accessible because of the height of the yard from Schubert, so you have to come at it from Travis Street.
Driving by the location today, it appears that the proposed new structure would not be visible from Schubert, given the elevation drop. Is that right?
Yes.
And likewise, the view from Travis, you won't be able to see the original house either because of the new construction.
Yes, I have it kind of viewpointed on the page 15. That's from Schubert.
Okay. The original structure is not visible from Schubert because of the.
And it's not visible from Schubert, but if you look, the addition that is there, it hides the house as well from the same viewpoint. So.
Yeah. Board, what are your thoughts, concerns, questions?
Mr. Chairman, one of the things I kind of bemoan to myself is I'm not using the right word, but the vistas that we lose, the open space that we see in Fredericksburg. And I have a property at Bowie and Travis, so I pass this property all the time, and I've looked at this, and I don't think that would affect that. Lack of a better word, that vista, that view. I don't think it's visible, at least from the Travis side. So I don't have a problem with that.
Did you say you don't think it's visible from the Travis side or from the
Travis side?
From the Schubert side?
I don't know about the Schubert side.
It would be visible from the Travis side, wouldn't it?
No, if you, but on Travis, yes, but not on Schubert. So.
Okay.
Did I get my streets mixed up? I beg your pardon. Sorry.
Schubert is the main elevation for the existing historic property.
So it wouldn't be visible from Schubert, but it would be very visible from Travis.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So any discussions about sizing, massing, lot coverage, items that Anna's pointed out.
I wanted to mention the height requirements. Actually, if it's 2 stories, in the guidelines, it says for 2 stories, it's 28 feet tall, so it meets that requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, I also put it on there as well. On page 15.
So it is 28 for 2 stories. Is that right? That's 4.3.3C. Is that right?
Yes, 3.4.3C. So it's 2 stories, 28 feet tall.
But on the guidelines, C, it's for, if you look at it, it's high, medium, and low priority. And this is a high rated property. The required maximum is 1 story. That's the way I read that.
Mm-hmm.
So the 28 foot for the 2 story would be if it was a medium rated property. In section 4.3.3C, the design guidelines for high priority rated properties, which this is one, I believe the required maximum of 1 story would be 18 feet in height. It's not allowed. That's the way I interpret it. This is the caption, and that's. And this is a bit different than previous. I know on Creek Street, we had a property where the ADU was on top of the garage, and I remember some discussions. We had very similar discussions. Guidelines are typically set as the ADU specifically, and I believe in my view, it's a little bit vague on if the ADU is on top of the garage or not. I'd love to hear your view on that, Anna. Because the design guidelines are written such that we tried to minimize the height and massing of the specific ADU. And it was trying to keep two-story ADUs from coming in to the district.
Right, so you're talking about the square footage issue, so
It's the height issue.
So the height issue is really the 18 feet, the 1 story, and then the footprint being the overall size of it, yeah. So the lot coverage dealing more with the footprint, and then the height and massing at 18 feet. I'm sorry,
My question was more previous conversation, and we did make an exception, I believe, over on Creek Street when the applicant wanted to have, it was like a 2-car garage with an ADU on top of it, and we thought we made an exception there with the size of the garage on the height. Maybe my memory's gone, but
I think you're talking about the Sykes apartment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where we
Our
had
scaling
the
is much
ADU was on
smaller.
top of the garage. Obviously, if it was just an ADU, then the limits would try to minimize having multiple story ADUs in the district. Would love to hear what others think.
I was just trying to remember how tall the beer small one was because they had the ADU on top of gym on top of the garage. But you're saying the overall front footprint is also too large, or just the height?
I'm sorry, what was the footprint?
The footprint was 864 square foot for this new addition 2-car garage. The existing historic property was approximately 650 square foot. So this is roughly a third greater overall size. But it does not take into the expansion, correct?
Correct. The proposed addition hasn't been built yet. So.
But there is an addition there. So is it including that or what? Just the rock.
What's the addition?
It just says the primary building, so it could be what's existing now as the primary building.
Okay, then it's much smaller because it goes back. If you look at the site plan, the existing house goes back to.
Yeah, an as-built would have been helpful.
It goes back to.
So what's currently in place now would be considered the primary.
It's probably like this.
Right, and that's larger than 650 square foot. Can you give us a ballpark on that?
I don't have that. I would say 12 to 15, around there.
Would you concur with that, Anna, or not?
I can try to pull it up on Appraisal District.
It's on.
But eyeballing it.
Like the layout of it's on the site plan. Or like a little image.
Could it be approved with the condition that the remodel was also complete? I mean, the addition, sorry.
What may not be an issue if the existing square foot is considered the primary. The 650 square foot, if I'm not mistaken, was just the original historic
Yes.
rock park. But since then, there's been an addition to that.
Yes.
And so it appears that what's currently in place is larger than 864 square foot.
Yes.
Visually, it looks to be the case, but Anna's just going to double check that. If that's the case, then it would comply with the footprint issue of item, or the issue that's in 3.4.1G on lot coverage. So that would go away. Is that clear? Yeah. But then it still brings up the issue about the height and then materials.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious about the effect that it would have on the visual for the other houses that are on Travis. To have the corrugated, the materials that are being used for that. How does that fit with the rest of the neighborhood, the rest of the block?
It's a new structure, so it would be a modern materials. I don't recall any other properties on that block having corrugated.
Mm-mm.
I think our big point on using the Core-10 is because board and batten and siding in this community has become kind of overload. Everywhere you look, it is. So I think we're trying to bring something in a little bit different that's not in your face. The corrugated is a very natural looking material to use on the side.
And I'd love to hear your comments on in section 3.4.3 on J. Our guidelines say modern materials such as fiber cement siding and corrugated metal may be appropriate for new accessory buildings, and it's appropriate all the way across.
It does say that, but then there's also the section that says you should, pull from the main structure too for material. And I guess usually the accessory building's in the back and it's not readily visible. And so this is going to be much more visible than your typical garage or ADU, since it's going to be a primary facade. So these type of lots also have double frontage, so it's a double front setback as well. So
it's an exception.
All of this block is like this with the through. So it's going to be more visible than I would say your average ADU. So I think getting the material right is going to be important, and the height, just because it's going to be a lot more visible than your typical.
I would say stone would be competing with the original structure, so that probably be a no-no.
Maybe breaking it up with a couple materials to pull from. But the height should be measured to the midpoint of the gable there. 18 feet looks to be the plate, but not how the building official measures height, which would be here.
So then it's going to be about 22. Between 20 and 22.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
If she's saying that it's going to be the mid plate, then it's about 22 feet tall, not 24. Which then makes it the same height as the recommended building in the guidelines. I put it on this sheet.
Right, but that's not for a high rated structure. The guidelines are specific for a high rated 18 feet.
It's the building you recommended to us.
I recommended the design guidelines, and this is Yes, that's an example that might be appropriate for a medium or low rated. But this is, the design guidelines are what we go by, and then that's potential example of what might be allowed in a certain example, but not this situation.
It appears that this loft or the second floor is pretty necessary for the family. And I think putting it up there on the second floor would be better than building another one-story building, which would just take up more of the lot. So I don't have any problem with it going, make an exception to go up.
I got to be honest. Before I went out when I first looked at the packet on Friday, I was very opposed to the height and the massing of this. But when I went to look at the Clear property, when I did the site visit on that one, I'm thinking about the site development patterns, and there's lots of examples in town where you have a small, block, house like the Clear property, and then you got a big, massive barn out back. And so I'm trying to blend that into my view of historical site development and context, of the area as well. So it kind of threw me into a little internal conflict.
Great. The adjacency of these applications is interesting. It feels like a modern day barn that they would have done.
And the other issue that's throwing me off personally, I don't know you guys, but the fact that if it were a separate ADU specifically, then it would be very rigid on the height and the massing. But the exception of it being above a normal two-sides garage, we wouldn't have a problem likely approving a garage, a normal two-car garage. It's just the issue that ADU is on top of that, which makes the height issues.
Mm-hmm. And the east side, how close is that to the mini mart? Do you know? It's close.
It's right behind it. It has one property in between it, but there's nothing developed there.
It's an open. There's the big 6-foot fence there, and that empty space behind the mini mart.
Wooden fence, yes.
Yeah. What would you guys like to do?
I just am thinking because of the high priority, if we've got the guidelines to guide us and it is high priority.
It's a high rated house.
Yeah. So then when we have these conflicts of feelings, do we go back to the guidelines to guide us, or do we?
They're guidelines.
I understand that, but I'm saying is that, they're written as guidelines to be followed for the design. So I'm just asking, is that something that's up to us to make a decision to make an exception?
Well, to that point, to make an exception, you do have to make the findings. If you'll look at page 1-16 for findings, you have findings that are different for a recommendation versus a standard. So it's a higher threshold for a standard.
Yeah, to answer your question specifically, we do have guidelines and we should be following the guidelines. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, not every case will fit perfectly in our guidelines, and so we still do have some subjectivity on how we interpret the guidelines. Uh-huh. Sometimes when it's set, it's pretty straightforward, but in some cases, I think we do have some variability. But if we do go against the guidelines, then we basically need to quote what that exception is for. Is an irregular lot size? Is there some extenuating circumstance that would preclude us, adhering to the exact guidelines?
Do you have your guideline thingy? Yeah, look on page 1-16.
16.
1-16. At the very front of the book.
For exceptions? Or what? Which part?
Well, I mean, all of it is, so that the Historic Review Board may grant an exception to these design guidelines and approving a COA application that meets the spirit of the Secretary's standards based on one or more of the following factors. So that would give us,
Yeah.
the.
Subjectivity. Yeah.
Mhm.
Further comments, concerns for the applicant or for Anna?
Well, we have the materials now. I thought we were still on the height.
This sounds so far back, yeah. Didn't we approve metal a block away on Cora on new construction? No, I know it's a new structure and it's not next to
It was an empty lot, and it was reusing existing that was there, yes.
Well, Larry, personally, I'd like to see a little mix of the corrugated and something else, with all due respect to my.
I think our intention of keeping it all one material is the fact that we did try to make it look like a barn in the essence of having another structure on the property. And barns typically don't have 4, 5, well, maybe even 2 different types of materials. It's all siding, wood siding.
Monolistic.
well, and personally that rock, there's a lot of that rock even on the new edition. It's kind of nice to see a blank palette from the rock.
Did you consider another color, possibly not curtain, something either dark like the roof or creamy like stone?
No, I think the Corten just is a natural look, so that's kind of what we were going for. We didn't want it to contrast too much with the structure, so we just kind of.
Yeah, because the requirement K of section 343 says that the exterior color palette should be in the same range as the primary building.
They're all natural tones, like earthy natural tones.
So lots of issues. Any consensus? Anything that we can?
Do y'all know of any landscaping that is going on that side of Travis?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, there is quite a bit of trees, and there's rock walls that are on there as well, pre-existing rock walls.
Yeah, I've seen that lot blank. It felt blank, like it wasn't complete for a really long time. So it's nice that something's being done with it.
And another question, are there parking requirements?
We're just gonna keep the driveway that's there, existing, not doing anything with it.
Do you know the intent for the ADU?
So what?
The intent, is it a guest house, long term, short term?
They are going to be using it while their other house is being built, and then they are going to do long-term rentals. Maybe not rentals, but like long-term stay, for people that work here or for help. They're a little bit older, so.
And it's a 1-bedroom unit?
It's studio-ish.
In answer to your question, Liliana, a 1-bedroom or studio apartment would require an additional parking space. But it looks like you'll have plenty of space.
It's a big parking lot, or not parking lot, but it's a gravel driveway with plenty of parking.
So would they need to meet ADA requirements? Like marked signs and anything like that? No.
Probably not. Just to keep things above board. Yeah, you could. I remember previous applications of board members speaking from the audience was looked upon, frowned upon. So if you can wait, that'd be preferred.
I personally like the mix of old and then the idea of a modern barn. And, you know, it's right next to some pretty decent eyesores. So, I mean, I not that that makes a difference, but I think that, I think it's a beautiful design. I really do like the contrast of modern versus old. And so I would like to make a motion to approve application number 23-116. Oh, sorry, 23-115, with the exception being function.
Is there so I have a second to that? Discussion on that motion. So the exception, it looks like the lot coverage compared to the AD coverage, but the ADU issue that Anna pointed out previously is not an issue given we've got a larger existing structure. So your exception to our guidelines is addressing the height issue and the materials, right?
Yes, the height issue. I don't know if we need to address the materials. I don't feel the need to address materials. I feel like it's a modern material, just like everybody is overusing glass walls versus wood and masonry.
Comments for the motion? We have a motion and we have a second.
So are we making an exception to the height? Is that correct?
Yes, the exception for the height would be function.
We have a motion, we have a second, and I'll call for a vote now. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda tonight, item D, application 23-116, 211 West San Antonio Street. The applicant's here. Would you please come to the podium and introduce yourself. And then we'll have Anna go through the application. Welcome this evening.
Thank you. I'm Sylvia Cook, and I'm the owner of 2111 West San Antonio Street. Happy to be here.
Put the microphone down.
Okay.
Before Anna starts, I'd like to commend you on taking this project on, and you have a very thorough application, and I really appreciate the effort that you put into it, especially with the history of the house. It's a great application, so thank you.
I know this house very well.
Yeah, right. So Anna, you want to walk us through?
Sure. So application 23-116 at 211 West San Antonio Street, another high-rated property. The applicant is requesting approval to replace existing green metal roof with either a standing seam, a ridge with painted green, or a polymer composite shingle roof to simulate the appearance of a wood shingle roof. Item 2, change the pitch of the roof addition to meet the original roof. Item 3, add plaster back to the front of the house. Item 4, replace the light fixture at the front door with a more period-appropriate fixture. Item 5, replace the porch gutters. Item 6, add 3 skylights to the back side of the roof. Item 7, repair chimneys and add cap. Item 8, replace the 1970s addition siding with fiber cement board. Item 9, remove the rear stair and replace with a deck. Item 10, installation of new water softener next to the existing AC unit. Item 11, replace existing replacement door with a period-appropriate double wood door on the front. So I've cited the relevant sections of the design guidelines and standards, roofs. So staff recommendation, staff commends the owner for taking on this worthy rehab project. The Stone Jordan home is an iconic Fredericksburg house. The house next door is associated with the same family and lends itself as a good example to look for architectural features. Item 1, the current roof is not original, but it is a historic age. Replacement with in-kind metal roof is appropriate per the design guidelines 3.23I. The roof of the addition can be altered to better match the original section of the house. Item 3, the house previously had plaster, and the sister house next door also has plaster. Staff will provide the National Park technical brief on masonry and plaster for reference to get the appropriate mix and strength of plaster. Item 4, the existing light fixture is not historic and can be replaced with a more period appropriate fixture. Item 5, half-round gutters are appropriate replacement gutters. Item 6, the location of the skylights will not be visible and are not on the original section of the house, and staff recommends approval. Item 7, staff recommends approval of the chimney repairs and cap replacement. Item 8, the siding on the rear is not historic and can be replaced either in kind or with composite materials as proposed. Item 9, the stair is not a historic feature and can be removed and replaced with the deck without impacting the integrity of the structure. Item 10, the placement of the water softener is appropriate. And item 11, the existing front door is a replacement door that required infill of the original opening. The proposed double wood door is more period appropriate than the existing, and staff recommends approval.
Ms. Cook, would you like to add to that or walk us through your project?
Well, I think it's, to me at least, it seems self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Board questions for Ms. Cook?
This is one of my favorite houses in town. That one and the one to your left house. Always. And I think you did a good job of putting everything down.
I'd like the record show that Mr. Laughlin is back on the board. So. That sounds like a motion.
I recommend approval of application 23-116 according to the Fredericksburg standards and design guidelines.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion, questions? If not, those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Good luck with the project. Can't wait
Thank
for it
you.
to be finished.
Thank you. Do you want me to come back with any kind of color selections? I'm going to try to keep everything pretty much the way it is now, but if you want more specificity on anything, I'll be happy to come
If
back.
you change any colors that's on the building currently, then you can come back, and I'm sure Anna will be able to do a sign off, unless it's something crazy.
Well, I hope not. But the addition will be painted. You know, it's not painted currently, and so that will visually be a change.
It's probably a good idea then just to run the colors
Sure,
back to
sure.
Anna. But good luck on the project, and I can't wait to see it completed.
I can't
like
either.
yourself.
I do
Thank
have
you.
a question or confirmation on the light fixture. So the one that will replace the existing, would it need to be a dark sky compliant as an exterior fixture?
Yes, and there are some examples that are period appropriate and dark sky compliant.
And I can run that by you, by Anna.
Get administrative
before-
sign off on that as well.
Before I do anything. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Moving on to item number 7, director's report. Anna?
Not much to report. I sent out an article yesterday that ran in Texas Society Architects Magazine that was initiated doing some mid-century research on our first mid-century landmark house over on Woodcrest. And I thought it was a concise article, but I think she kind of got to the point and wrapped it up. I was hoping for a real focus on mid-century, but obviously we're in Fredericksburg and everybody wants to talk about short-term rentals. But I think she couched it pretty well. So I hope you enjoyed that article, and it just
Thanks for
reminded
the
me that I
effort.
like doing that kind of research, and I wish I had more time. But if anybody wants to spearhead a symposium on mid-century architecture, that'd be great. Because I think there's more to be told. I would love to do more research onto Jack Staling and see some more of his.
We have some great examples in town.
Yeah.
They get overlooked.
So now maybe people take a slower look, drive by some of those properties. But otherwise, I mean, we just got the update on 413 West Creek.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
sent you guys that email from the new owner. Not too much to say other than, you know, they are working on plans and want to get started. Sounds like they're working with a structural engineer. We'll be foregoing some of the previous designs, so I think depending on how much change that might come back to us for a new C of A, but we'll just have to evaluate that when we see what they're actually proposing. But the sale went through, the new owners have it, and seem pretty aware that we're very interested in preventing the demolition by neglect.
And I drive by that property just about every day. So it appears that at least it's stable at the moment for the steps that the previous owners took.
So I have a question about that, just as a new to this process. When we issued that letter to the previous owners, I know there was a timeline that started. Has it already been bucked up enough so that these new owners are not feeling the pressure of that timeline?
Well, I think this kind of is that next step, you know, what's the plan? And so at least they're in conversation with us and they do have a plan. So yes, I feel
So
like
even if the clock is ticking, we know that they're
this is
making best efforts.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I guess it was my view that we sent the letter out and we got action on it, and this property is secure. So the previous owner and the current owner have met the obligation from the letter, unless something else changes. So it'd be interesting to see what they come back with at and the intended purpose for that.
So does that make the letter null and void at this point?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we'll continue to watch it. You know, if we're in the same
If something
position,
happens,
yeah, or doesn't happen in 60 days, then we can start it back up. Yeah, the next step. And next month we will have an update on 311 East Trappist.
That was, which one was that?
It's the small one on the.
Okay. Yeah. Any items to include for discussion next one you can think of? I see a maybe there.
Just comp plan, we gave an update to City Council a couple weeks ago, and we've got a big touch truck event next week. That's the city's open house and very family-friendly event. And hope to see lots of families come out. We will be doing a new survey specific to parks. That'll be kicked off at that event, and that survey will be open for a couple weeks. It's a much shorter survey, fewer questions, but very specific to parks. And then we'll have another advisory committee meeting in April, and then another P&Z and City Council would combine meeting in May. So we're right in the thick of it. This is where a lot of the work's going to be done in the next few months. So stay involved as you can.
Thank you.
I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. Meeting adjourned. Can I say something off the record and have one record?